Hello everybody, this is Connor at BoatsDon'tSink here with another Shadowverse Evolve deck profile. This time we're going to be continuing our BP05 deck profiles with Repose Haven. So again, we're going to be covering one of the 10 Omens from BP05 Omens Eternal. They are the cover characters. We've looked at two so far, Lashena and Rulanai. Now we're going to be moving on to the fourth Omen. We're not looking at the first or 10th since they're more generic neutral cards. They can kind of slot into any deck. So Marwynn is the fourth Omen. He is the Omen of Repose. He brings eternal rest. So he's going to be doing some resting. He's going to make your opponent do some resting. He's going to play a really slow, controlling game until he kind of just wins at the end because your opponent runs out of things to do. They're just gonna fall into a sleep forever unbroken, as he says. So Marwynn's cards are all they are all zealot traded. However, similar to some of the others, they don't really care about the trait. They just have it. There are previous cards, obviously, that have this trait, but we're not interacting with it. Instead, his cards are more just really hard control pieces, for the most part, that are going to interact very well with some of the old control cards that we have in Havencraft, such as these shown here. So pretty much this is just the update to the old like Aegis control decks, but we're playing the Repose cards in here as a package to just give it a little more oomph than it had before, and it's some really big oomph. A reminder, as always, before we take a look at the deck list, this is more just meant to be a starting point. It's not really optimized for any specific meta, so obviously if you're planning on taking this to a big event, do some testing, find the changes that you like more, make those changes, play around with it, build the deck to your liking. This is just meant to be a starting point. Alright, so taking a look at our list here, there's going to be a lot of familiar faces, a lot of cards that we've seen before in these control decks, as well as some new cards. So we have obviously some of the Repose cards we showed, not all of them. We're actually only playing 3 of them here, as well as 1 or 2 other new cards from BP05. Our Evolved deck, pretty standard, we just got 2/2/2/2/2. The second Bellringer Angel is pretty much just a flex slot. You could play a third copy of any of the other Evolves. If you just only want to run one Bellringer Angel, that's just entirely up to you and what you find yourself using most often. As always, you can check the decklog code for this. You can see the decklog page using the code in the bottom right, or the link in the description. That's going to be 2YBPY for this one. So looking at our curve, it is noticeably higher than most of the decks I post here. We only have, what is this, 20 cards at 3 and lower, and then 20 cards at 4 and higher. 9 4-drops is a lot. Deck is pretty slow, but it's supposed to be. It's a control deck. We have 19 followers, 17 spells. That is basically all removal. And then we have 4 amulets, which we got a little bit of like a Globe of the Starways tutor package here, with 2 one-of amulets that are, one of which I'd say is crucial to our strategy. The other one is more matchup dependent, and will win us games where it's good, but is also just completely dead in other matchups, so not great there. But it's a card that's worth playing, because we do have ways to discard it. So jumping into the actual cards for the deck here. First up, we have Bellringer Angel, always a staple in control decks because it lets you slow the game down. 1 cost 0/2 ward, gonna protect you early in the game. Last words, draw a card, so it replaces itself as well. Bellringer Angel evolves for 2 play points into still a 0/2, still a ward, still draws you a card on last words. On evolve, deals 2 damage to an enemy follower on the field. 2 damage is really good this format. There are a lot of aggressive 1 and 2 drops that dealing 2 damage to can be a lifesaver. So the Usurpation deck, the Lust deck, all the decks playing Fina just as a generic 2-drop. Bellringer is going to be able to take all those out and really slow your opponent down in those matchups, as well as blocking an attack from whatever swings into its ward as well. Could just really help you get into the late game pretty safely. Angelic Snipe, we've played this in like all the lists we've looked at for this set so far. Card is fantastic. 1 cost, quick timing, deal 2. Again, a lot of 2 defense followers that are worth getting rid of. And if we're a control deck, that's the name of the game. We want to get rid of everything our opponent plays. Next, we have the Saviors. So this is a new spell. We're playing 2 copies of it. It's a 1-cost spell. Choose one of the following. Option 1, search your deck for a Marwynn, Omen of Repose. So that's our new legendary. The Omen himself. This lets us search him from the deck. So pretty good if you're playing like a slower matchup and your opponent isn't really doing anything that you have to respond to on the first or second turn. You can just jam this to search out your Marwynn so that you guaranteed have him to play on turn 4. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you can choose option 2, which is select an enemy follower with 2 defense or less on the field and banish it. Now, obviously, this is still going to answer everything that Bellringer answered, everything that Angelic Snipe answered, but since this banishes, it actually has a few even better applications. Things like Bellringer Angel itself, that your opponent's not going to get to draw a card if you banish their Bellringer. Ayala, Dragon Knight. This has been seeing a little bit of play in some of the PDK decks. Your opponent doesn't get to ramp if you banish it. And Leonidas, which is a sort of common top-end threat in the slower mid-rangier sword decks. It obviously, when it evolves, it deals 5 damage to itself, putting it at 6-2. And if your opponent doesn't have anything to crash into immediately, they'll kind of leave it up in a position where if you answer it, they get the amulet, and if not, they just attack you for 6. Obviously, against Haven, that's kind of risky anyway because of things like Acolyte's Light. But the Saviors just gives us another way to banish it since it'll be a 6-2. So, great card there. Sort of serves double purpose as the 4th and 5th Angelic Snipes, but slightly better. But not quick timing. That is the downside here. Or a tutor if we don't need to use it to banish anything. This could also be good later in the game if you just have, like, an extra play point or 2 left over after doing whatever else you wanted. And you want to just search a Marwynn to, like, hard play on 7 or 8. That's also perfectly fine. Next, we have 1 copy of Guardian Sun, kind of the eternal staple for the endgame combo of this deck. 1-cost Amulet, Fanfare, select a follower on your field, and give it Ward. Activated ability, pay 2, engage, sack this, select a follower with Ward on your field, and give it +2/+2. So, obviously the main thing we're going to be giving Ward to here is Heavenly Aegis. The evolved form specifically has a lot of good text on it. It has aura, it can't be destroyed by abilities, and during the turn it evolves until your opponent's next turn, until the end of your opponent's next turn, it doesn't take damage. So the big combo here, right, is you give it Ward, it can't take damage, it can't be targeted, and it can't be destroyed by abilities. So it's essentially impossible to remove unless your opponent has like AoE Bounce or AoE Banish, which there are cards that do, but they, other than Hair of Illusion, paying 10, Lightning Blast and Homecoming both have to have other targets since the Heavenly Aegis can't be targeted. So if you just don't give them other targets, your Heavenly Aegis is basically impossible to remove and you can just start swinging in for like 12 damage, which is how you win the game. That is your control win condition here. Moving into 2-drops, we have Surefire Bullet, again, massive staple of the format. 2-cost quick spell, deal 3 to an enemy follower. If it's evolved, deal 4 instead. So there are a lot of new good 4-drops. If you've watched my other deck profiles for this set, this is going to start getting really repetitive. I've had this slide in like every deck profile so far. Things like Octrus, Rulanai, Cat Cannoneer, the list goes on. There are a lot of good 4/4 Evos. 3/3s that evo into 4/4s, or in Octrus's case, a 2/2 that pays 2 to evolve into a 4/4, are everywhere. They're generally like the best cards in the game, especially like early mid game. So Surefire Bullet being able to answer all of them is insane, especially as a control deck. We just really want to keep these things off the board. Rulanai's a little annoying, so we have to pay 3, but you know, whatever. Obviously, there's also a ton of older 4/4s, Draconeer, Alice, Floral Fencer, that are still seeing play. Cards like Rose Gardener, cards like Dragon Warrior, cards like Priest of the Cudgel. The list goes on and on and on, all the 4/4s that Surefire Bullet can kill. We play 3 of this in every deck that has any kind of like mid-range or control-leaning strategy. Next, we have 2 copies of Globe of the Starways. I love this card. This is a 2-cost Amulet, Fanfare, search your deck for an Amulet. Easy enough. This is going to get us the one of Guardian Sun or one of Enstatued Seraph. Those are our 2 search targets for it. If you've already drawn whichever one of those you want, you can always also just search the other Globe of the Starways so that you don't have to draw it for turn at any point in the game. And then once you ever want to search, whichever amulet you don't already have, you can just play that second Globe of the Starways. So really sort of versatile there. But it also has the ability quick timing, pay 2, engage, and sack this to give your leader +1 defense and draw a card. So not only does it replace itself on play, it also draws you another card. So this is card advantage. This tutors pieces of our strategy. It thins our deck. It means we're going to be drawing better cards as we keep going. Just perfect card in every right. And it's what we want to do sort of as we progress through the game on a turn where we have extra play points to spend. We jam this and just start getting pieces of our end game into hand. Next, we're playing 3 copies of Apostle of Repose. So this is one of the other new cards introduced in this set, part of the Repose package. This is a 3-cost 2/4, so it is leaning on the defense side here. At the start of each opponent's main phase, recover 1 play point. So this is going to let us sort of tap out to do whatever we want to do, and then also start recovering play points on the opponent's turn to hold up things like Angelic Snipe or Surefire Bullet, or as the game goes on, maybe even Craving Splendor or Acolyte's Light. It evolves for 2 into a 3/5. On evolve, select a reserved enemy follower on the field and banish it. And then at the start of each opponent's main phase, you recover 2 play points instead of just 1. So that's going to be especially helpful with getting things like Surefire Bullet online. Banishing a reserved follower is actually really powerful here. There's a lot of cards that want to just like sort of come down and sit on the board and get to attack next turn, so they don't turn sideways to make themselves vulnerable. Cards like Dark Angel, Olivia, Lyriel especially is a big one in this set that people will just play, and since its burn effect is quick timing, you'll always just use it on your opponent's end step. This means that it is completely vulnerable to Apostle of Repose. This thing can hit giant stat lines. So even if your opponent plays like the 7/7 Ancient Elf stat line, your Apostle of Repose can just come down and banish it if they don't ward it, which they probably won't, right? Because they want to attack for 9 probably on the next turn. And you can get rid of that pretty easily. So really powerful card, especially since you can play it, evo it, banish something, swing at something if they have another like 3 defense follower. You'll probably live the trade because 5 defense is a ton. And then you get 2 play points back, so you can hold up a Surefire Bullet, which is kind of just like a 3-for-1, maybe even 4-for-1, because they're also going to have to spend another card to get rid of your Apostle of Repose. So you can potentially just like 4-for-1 your opponent. Or I guess not 4-for-1, 4-for-2, because you're spending the Surefire Bullet, but super value. Just tons of value everywhere. However, it is a 3-cost that evolves for 2, which is a little clunky on your curve. It means you don't really have anything good to do on 3 going second, 4 going first. So if you do want something a little nicer on the curve there, you can just replace this with Priest of the Cudgel. It's got the same sort of idea of banishing things. However, Priest only hits slightly smaller things than Apostle of Repose does. Our other 3-cost card we play is Craving Splendor. This is just a removal spell. It is a new one. It is part of the Omen of Craving package, the 10th Omen. We're not playing any of the other cards in it, we're just playing this one. 3-cost quick timing. If you have Giln Elise on field, it costs 3 less from EX area. We don't care about that, we're not playing Giln Elise. What we care about is to deal 4 damage to an enemy follower on the field, give your leader +1 defense. 4, as we discussed with Surefire Bullet, is a great number. Even though you're paying 1 extra play point, you're still able to hit all the 4/4 evos that Surefire Bullet can, and you gain a defense while you're doing it. However, you can also hit 4 defense unevolved followers, of which there are a few notable ones. Early game Sybil of the Waterworm, Tin Soldier is another one, and that list will just keep growing as we go on. I think Craving Splendor is a fantastic removal card this format. Just being able to hit all the same things as Surefire Bullet makes it effectively your 4th, 5th, and 6th copies. But also slightly better in matchups where you can afford to spend the 3rd play point to hit unevolved things. Moving into our giant list of 4-drops, we have Jean. This is a 4-drop 3/4 from set 1. Fanfare, deal 2 damage to each enemy follower on the field. Evo for 2. On evolve, deal 2 damage to each enemy follower on the field. And give each other follower on your field +2 defense. I don't know that we care as much about giving our stuff +2 defense, but having a 2 damage sweeper in this deck is really important. Mainly because when it evolves, it is a 4 damage sweeper. And as we've discussed with Craving Splendor and Surefire Bullet, 4 is a great number to be hitting. It doesn't quite hit that like premium removal number of 5, the number that your Witch Bolt, Ivy Spellbomb, Serpent Wrath, things like that are hitting. But 4 is still pretty good, especially in the situations where you need a sweeper. It means your opponent's going wide, right? And generally the decks that go wide are going to be like 2, 3, or 4 defense. They're not going to be 5 as often. So Jean can still answer pretty much any of their followers very easily. If you do have anything like an Omen of Repose, just sort of chilling, or a Bellringer Angel chilling, or any of our later game cards that we're going to see here, and you play Jean afterwards, the +2 defense can make them quite annoying to deal with, but she's mainly in here for the sweeper effect to sort of stabilize mid-game, if your opponent finds a way to rebuild a board after all your removal spells. Now, the big guy, literally and figuratively, Marwynn, Omen of Repose. 4-drop, 4/4, and let me tell you, he's going to live up to his Repose Eternal Sleep here. He is not doing anything. He is slow. He is big. He has 2 evolve costs and no other text. First evolve cost is 4. That's a lot. This man is making you do nothing the turn you play him, and the turn you evolve him. Or if you're at like 8 and you do both in the same turn, you're still doing nothing. Congratulations. Or you can go to sleep for a turn and evolve him. You can skip your next turn. This lets your opponent take 2 turns in a row, which sounds very dangerous, especially when like D-Shift is a real card and is a deck's win condition. Giving your opponent that for free doesn't seem great. However, he makes it worth it, I promise. He evolves into an 8/8 Ward Aura. On evolve, increase your maximum play points by 1, so you're not losing out on mana curve by skipping your turn. Give your leader +3 defense, and draw a card, so you're not losing out on your draw for turn either. He's effectively replacing the start phase that you're missing on your next turn, if you skip your turn to evolve him, and also giving you +3 defense. If you actually pay the 4, he's just free value. He's just ramp and card draw, which can be a great way to like jam him on 8 and just tap out for him, and skip into 10 for the next turn to be able to get like a full Heavenly Aegis Guardian Sun setup. Playing him on turn 4, skipping your turn is actually a viable strategy here, because Aura and Ward is huge. They can't just hit him with a removal spell. They pretty much have to swing guys into him. And he has Ward, so they can't hit you. They can't just go like, play my guys on the first turn, move to my second turn, attack you, because he's warded. They're going to have to crash their guys into him before they can get anything to you. Which is great, because we're a control deck that has inevitability on like turn 9, turn 10, turn 11. We have to get to turn 9, turn 10, turn 11, and making our opponent do nothing for 2 turns is how we're going to get there. And Marwynn is great at making our opponent do nothing for 2 turns. Alternatively, you're playing against like a control deck. Say you're playing as like Rune, right? And they just have like spells that they want to be playing, and they're not really affecting the board. You just jam this guy and evo him and pass. You don't even ward. Because then next turn you're going to hit them for 8, because even if they have 2 turns to do stuff, if they don't have cards that can answer him or threaten you, you just beat them up, right? You just start hitting them for 8. And then you still have a ward afterwards that they have to deal with. So this card's fantastic. I think it reads as like a trap where you're like, oh, I don't want to give my opponent 2 turns, but like, what are they going to do? They have to get through an 8/8. There are ways to get through it, like giving a Demonium Rush, or just playing a Demonium and then attacking with them on the second turn. Old Man, Old Woman, Shrouded Assassin, Shapeshifting Mage, what's the other? Righteous Devil. There are ways to deal with them. You have to be aware of these, but he's still very powerful. Some of them are also possible to answer if you curve Apostle of Repose into Marwynn. Or there's a card we'll look at in a second that you can play Marwynn on 4 and not evolve him. And then on 5, we can play Deus Ex Machina and then evolve Marwynn. Because we can have some ways, similar to Apostle of Repose, get play points back on our opponent's main phase. In order to hold up removal spells, even to protect our Marwynn. If they do have like a Bane follower that can swing at him. So, great card. Really defensive, really good. At all stages of the game. 3 Acolytes Light. This card's a staple. It's obvious why. 4 cost, quick timing. Select an enemy follower on the field. Banish it. Give your leader +2 defense. It kills everything. It doesn't kill aura, obviously, but it kills everything. And it banishes them so they don't even get last words. It's just the best single target removal spell in the game, so we're playing 3 of it because it gets rid of the things that nothing else does. And it's quick timing. And it costs 4, which works perfectly with this next card. Deus Ex Machina. This is a new legendary from BP05. This card's fantastic. 5 cost 4/6. At the start of your end phase, choose one of the following. Option 1, discard your hand, draw 4. If you ever just have to run through all your removal spells early, or like just play out a bunch of cards, or if you're playing against Silence and they're making you discard all your cards, you jam this and just go, cool, I'll discard my like 1 card hand and draw 4 new cards. Alternatively, the mode you're probably going for slightly more often, recover 4 play points. It means you can tap out on 5 for Deus Ex Machina and still hold up every removal spell in your deck. You can hold up Acolyte's Light, you can hold up Craving Splendor, you can hold up multiple Surefire Bullet and Angelic Snipes. This gets even cooler if you do the thing, like I said, you play Marwynn on 4 and just pass, and if they don't answer an untapped Marwynn, you play Deus Ex Machina, skip your turn, get 4 play points back, and then hold up Acolyte's Light to protect him, and then just start beating face. Especially since on turn 5, you evolve him to an 8/8 and just get to attack immediately. And then he's warded, you have protection. You can win the game very quickly that way if they don't answer him. You do have to weigh the risk there, though, because base form Marwynn does not have aura, so his 4 is a lot easier to answer. Other things you can do, you can play Ether, summon this, and then get 4 play points back, so you get a 3/5 and a 4/6, and hold up removal. This card, if this card ever lives a turn cycle, and you get to recover 4 play points the second time, you have gotten so much value that it's very difficult for your opponent to just like overcome the amount of cards you've been able to play for free, basically. Very good card. Yeah, obviously it lets us hold up Acolyte's Light, Surefire Bullet. It also lets us crack Globe of the Starways. If our opponent, if we have one of these on board from early game, right, we can go get 4 play points, use a Surefire Bullet for 2, and then just use the other 2 to crack Globe, draw a card, get defense, etc. Themis Decree, 3 copies, more control tool staples, 5 cost, destroy each follower on the field. This does destroy our own, so you do have to be a little careful if you have like a fat Marwynn or something. You don't want to, you ideally don't want to Themis while you have Marwynn on board. Sometimes you'll just have to because the Marwynn can't answer enough things on his own. He is only 1 attacker. But yeah, great card otherwise, just to like, your opponent makes a giant board, you just clear it out instantly, pass, you know, make them do it again. Also works nicely with Heavenly Aegis if the opponent tries to play a game where like you put down your 12/12 Heavenly Aegis and they're like, okay, well, I'll just play a ward. I'll just play a bunch of wards every turn so they can't get through it with their Heavenly Aegis. He can't be destroyed by effect, so Themis Decree just kills everything else, and then your Aegis can attack them freely. So it's pretty good for that as well. Next, we have 1 copy of Enstatued Seraph. This card saw a lot of play during set 2. And then kind of fell out of favor for a little bit just because it was very slow in the face of aggro decks, and that's still true. It is still quite slow against aggro decks. However, Globe of the Starways, being able to just search the 1/of in the games where we need it, is pretty good. You're putting this down against slower decks. Maybe you're putting this down on like turn 8 or 9 when you can play it and hold up removal against faster decks. Maybe even turn 10. But this card is basically just more inevitability. It can't be destroyed by abilities, so you don't have to worry about like Execution or Machikane Tannhauser. Start of your end phase, put a prayer counter on this. Once it has 4 prayer counters, it sacks itself, you get +10 defense. Search your deck for 2 cards, put them in your EX area, they cost 0 to play. So what you're generally getting with this is Guardian Sun and Heavenly Aegis. Or a way to search Guardian Sun and Heavenly Aegis. Because playing them for 0... right, means that you get the entire setup for free, and then can also do other things like play a Deus Ex Machina, or play a second Heavenly Aegis, or play removal spells, just all in the same turn. If you already have either of these in your hand, you can search out like Acolyte's Light to hold up a 0-cost quick timing removal spell, things like that. You can get Ether so that you can like Enstatued Seraph for Ether, get the Heavenly Aegis. But you're basically using it in some capacity to set up this combo for free and be able to do other things. which is pretty much impossible for most decks to overcome. That is generally the point at which you win the game. Speaking of Ether, it is our 7-drop. We play 2 copies. This is a 3/5 ward. Pretty small for a 7-drop, but fanfare, search your deck for a Havencraft follower with a different name from this card that costs less than your maximum play points. So if you play this on 7, you would get a 6 or lower, and put it onto your field. This has a few targets that you can get like on curve if you just play this on 7. You can get Jean if you need to clear a board. You can get Marwynn, you can get Deus Ex Machina. Out of these, I think Deus Ex is generally the best choice, since you can go, as I said earlier, Ether, get Deus Ex, gain 4 play points back. You have 7-11 total stats on board for that, and you can hold up removal. Sometimes maybe you just want to get Marwynn and like skip your turn to evolve him, since that'll take you up to 9 that you untap on, which if you're going second is enough to either play another Ether and get Aegis and like pitch 3 evolve him, or actually pay 2 evolve him as well, or pay 1 in an Evo point and play Guardian Sun, which is what you want to do on 9 if you're playing Aegis. Or you can, you know, just start attacking more, like, or you can hard play Aegis since you'll have enough play points at that point if you don't have another Ether. Lots of things you can do by like ramping from 7 to 9 off of Marwynn there. You can get Jean. You can't evolve her on curve because she costs 2 to evolve, but if you play Ether on 8 going second, 9 going first, you can get the Jean and evolve it, so you can use it as a sweeper that also has ward, basically. And Jean's Evo will buff Ether to a 3/7, so the ward's even harder to remove. Lots of cool synergies there for targets you can get for Ether. This deck doesn't have like a dedicated Ether box, as you'll hear it called, where it's a lot of like 5 and 6 drops that just have like utility effects for Ether to grab. This is more just Ether as extra value on any of our other cards. And of course, obviously, Ether on 9 is the most playpoint efficient way to get Heavenly Aegis in play. The big issue with the Heavenly Aegis combo is that 8 to play it, 2 to evolve it, and 1 for Guardian Sun is 11 play points, and you cannot do that all in one turn. If you go second, you can do it because you have the Evo point to make up for one of the 2 to evolve him. Otherwise, you have to discard 3 to evolve him, or get him off of Ether, because then he only costs 7 instead of 8. So Ether is very important for setting that up as well. And of course, lastly, 3 copies of Heavenly Aegis. 3 might seem like too many, but I promise you, just jamming this guy on 8 and passing can win you the game a lot of the time. You know, even especially like if you jam him on 8 and just have enough hand to pitch 3 evolve him, it can win you the game single-handedly, just because your opponent now has to answer this guy, or they are on a very short clock. I mean, he's going to take out half their life every turn because he does evolve into a 10/10. And if you can start pumping him, it's just even better. If you give him a ward with Guardian Sun, he becomes immortal and makes you immortal pretty much. He can go up to like a 12/12. Just running him out is so powerful that it can win you the game on its own, especially because if they don't kill it the first turn, you start to get to attack with it and have removal spells up. And since Themis Decree doesn't destroy Aegis, it's just like free control of the board. Card is insanely powerful. It's worth playing 3 of just so we can run it out freely and be able to search more off the Ether and do sort of the invulnerability combo. If you draw too many of them, you can pitch them to each other's evolve costs, which is great. Same thing with the Seraph. If you draw Seraph in a matchup where you don't want it, you can just pitch it to the Aegis evolve. Overall, great card, really key to the deck's strategy here, and it's our win condition. It's kind of always been Haven's control win condition. So looking at the deck as a whole, I really like this deck. I think it's one of the best decks in the format right now, just because of how many good control tools it has and how hard Aegis is to stop once it gets rolling. So pros, obviously, tons of removal for almost any situation. We have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 spells that are all removal, as well as 9, I guess, followers that are removal. So that's 26 cards of removal right there. You know, and that's not counting our ways to just, like, get more, which is insane. We have multiple sweeper effects. We have Jean and we have Themis Decree that are able to clear wide boards. And we have giant threats. Marwynn's an 8/8, Aegis is an 8/8 that evolves to a 10/10. So we have huge numbers that are very hard to deal with, and have aura, which makes them just even harder to deal with and put very quick clocks on our opponent that can just end the game. Cons, however, it's a very slow deck. It has a high curve, so your hands can get kind of cloggy. You're not doing a lot in the early games. You're a bit weak to aggro. And in the late game, you're not playing multiple cards. You're just kind of doing the best thing each turn and hoping it works out. You're not winning until like turn 10 or 11 usually. It also has less healing than some of the control decks, especially looking at the older Haven lists, and also especially like Dragon. The control Dragon lists somehow have more healing with this than this between Sybil and Dragon Nest and Shenlong, which does leave us with a bit of a weakness to burn effects. The Fable Haven matchup can be a bit rough. I think that's the main burn deck right now. Disdain Dragon can also be a little rough, but they're not impossible, but we don't have great ways to heal out of their ranges. And our wide removal effect options are a little limited in the early game. They are mostly relegated down to like 5 cost, 6 cost effects. We don't really have good sweepers at like 3 and 4, like you might see a Dragon Wings or something like that. So you just have to be mindful. Wide boards early can be a bit of a problem for you. And here we go with the full list. Once again, you can check out the deck log page for this at the code in the bottom right, 2YBPY. Here's the Evolve deck. As I said, Bellringer can just go into any of the others if you'd rather have like a third Jean, third Marwynn, third Aegis. I think Jean or Marwynn are probably the most likely there, probably Jean. But yeah, so pretty simple deck. It's kind of just straightforward, all control tools. Never stop controlling your opponent, and then eventually win with Aegis after you've told them no enough times. Thanks for watching, as always. If there's any decks you'd like to see, please let me know. I will obviously be covering the rest of the Omens. Sorry this one took me a little while to get out. Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail came out a few weeks ago, and I have been entirely distracted by it. But we are going to get the rest of the Omens out, so we will have Galmu. Let's see, we have Galmu, Izudia, Valnarek, Octrice, and Ryo still to come. Those will be coming out soon. If there's any other decks you'd like to see, please let me know. Until then, there should be some videos on the screen for you to check out, and I will see you next time.